All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Makar Kodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is going to be a lesson on Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 16. And in this lesson, I'm going to try not to go in too much on the women while using this scripture, because I'm going to use this scripture to prove that we are the Israelites, right? Which this scripture clearly proves that we're the Israelites anyway, right? But you've got a lot of people out there that they try and say that we're not the Israelites, and will even try and disagree with this scripture when we use it to prove that we're the Israelites. So let's go into it. This is Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 16. Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 16. Moreover, Yahweh saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks, and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. So that means because the Israelite women are being proud, because they're going about with wanton eyes, meaning they're glancing from one man to a next man. They've got a husband at home, they've got a man, but they're looking at other men, or they're walking down the streets with their high heels or with their ankle jewels. In the ancient world, with ankle jewels. In the modern world, it's high heels, right? Clicking and clacking, right? Being proud. This is what Yahweh is going to do. Verse 17. Therefore, the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and Yahweh will discover their secret parts, right? In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, their cords and their round ties like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs, and the headbands, and the tablets and the earrings, the rings and nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel, and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen, and the hoods and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well set hair, boldness. Now, some people want to try and say that the hair is symbolic, right? Symbolic for what? What's hair symbolic for? Because is everything else symbolic then? Because they'll try and say, oh, the hair is symbolic for blah blah blah, whatever they want to say, and they can say that, but they can't. We can clearly see that when we look into the world, that there's a group of people, a group of women that do not have hair, and they get excited if their hair reaches down to their shoulder, man, right? And other Israelite women get envious if another Israelite woman's hair goes down to their shoulder. And if that Israelite woman that's hair might only go down to their shoulder is to go to a female barber's or female salon, whatever you want to call it, right? And get her hair cut, that Israelite woman is going to hate on her for having longer hair than her, and she's going to cut extra inches off the hair so that that woman can have bought less hair, just like how she's got it, man. And people can say, nah, that don't happen. But they ain't part, a lot of the people that will say, nah, that don't happen, they ain't part of our community anyway. They're outsiders looking in, and they don't know the inner depths of our nation, man. We know what our nation is about, man. We know what our people are about. And that's why we can look at a heathen or somebody that looks like a heathen, and we can say, oh, that's a Jake, that is. Or we can look at a heathen trying to pass for one of our people and be like, nah, you're a tear. You aren't part of our nation, man. We can spiritually see and discern with it who our people are and who our people ain't, man. Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 24, again, it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well set hair, boldness, and instead of a stomach, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. So what this scripture is saying is that Yahweh was going to take away the beauty of the Israelite woman, and he's done that, man. Now you clearly had a guy that used to be, he's dead now, but he was a big person that was exposing this, man. Kevin Samuels, and his whole thing was about trying to make both the men and the women alter their ways and improve themselves and get together between each other, right? And but he started then changing it to focusing on the women and telling them to fix up. And the main thing that you could always see with these women is that they wasn't very attractive, man, right? One of the things that you would always see with a lot of these Israelite women was that they wasn't very attractive, and they always had weave in their hair, a lot of them, man, right? And but they still thought for some reason that they was better looking than what they was, man, right? But one of the things you saw again was that they had lack of hair, and they had lack of attractiveness levels, and they was always still thinking that they deserve a man that's a better than them. And they was talking all this talk about them not wanting to settle and saying all of this stuff, but then they wanted the man to settle for less than what he would be worth to have, if you want to even say it, if I should even say it that way, right? But they thought that they was better than what they actually looked like, man. They didn't realize that Yahweh was the reason why they had lack of hair and they had lack of beauty, because they are facing this curse, man. And any Israelite woman that tries to come up debating with her Israelites, all you have to do is read that to her and she'll get cut to the spirit, man. Anytime I've ever made a Israelite woman be aware of this Bible verse, that this is in the Bible, you can see the pride slowly draining out of them, man, because they know about this thing regarding their hair, man. They know, and they can't explain it because they know that every other nation of women have hair and can grow long flowing hair, man. But it's only the Israelite woman that cannot do it on a large scale. There might be like 5%, 10% that can, but the majority cannot do it. The majority cannot do it, man. And that's a hurt. That's a hurt of their pride, because a woman's hair is her beauty. Let me see if I can find that verse on that. A woman's glory is her hair, according to what the scriptures say. I know it's somewhere in the New. I know it's somewhere in the New Testament. Let me see if I can find that. It says a woman's glory is her hair. Here we go. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 14, I'll start. Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, he is a shame unto him? So a man's not supposed to be boasting in how long his hair can be, right? But within our nation, the men can grow longer hair than the women, man. You'll be seeing men with crazy high afros and stuff like that, right? That they can have cornrows and all of this stuff, and they can just grow their hair. But the woman cannot do that, right? And I've got females from my family that, yeah, they used to ponder this, and they used to wonder why, and I used to wonder why. But now, thanks to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua in the scriptures, we know the answer to this, right? But the women are always going to try and not say that this is what it is, but we can see that it clearly is a problem that the Israelite woman cannot grow her hair, man. Especially of the southern kingdom, because they're, if people want to disagree, they're some of the most proud. Because a lot of them will be from Judah, which is like the head tribe, isn't it? So a woman from Judah is going to have more pride than a lot of women from other tribes, man. And Benjamin too. They're proud too, man. Very. Verse 14. Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto you? But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. So if a woman hasn't got long hair, she's lost her glory. She's losing some of her glory, and she's losing her covering, man. She's lost that. And that's why women, when they hear about this scripture, it hurts them to the soul, man, because they know that this is a thing that they have to deal with, man. But they don't understand why. They don't understand why. But because of this world, they've been able to have the delusion of covering it up. But we can clearly, people can say that the hair is symbolic all they want. And I typed in on the internet, black women hair, weave damage, and this is the stuff that happens. Because they try and cover it up with weave, right? But then the weave ends up damaging their hair and further bringing in that curse anyway. To the point where they now can't even have a weave, because a weave has to be weaved into their hair. So instead, they have to wear a wig, right? And they might have a do-rag underneath the wig. I'm not saying this to try and laugh, because this is a shame unto them, man. Right? But they'll have a do-rag maybe on, or a skull cap or something like that underneath the wig, and they'll have to put a wig on top of their hair. Right? But the reason why this is happening to them is because they're haughty and they walk with stretched forth necks and one-ton eyes. You can clearly see this. Right? This is the stuff that they have to go through to have long hair, man. This is the stuff they have to go to. And then they'll try and say, oh, this woman does it too. That woman does it too. Right? But forget them women. Because you're the Israelite woman. And you like to always talk all this queen's talk, queen this, queen that. Right? Well, then if you're so-called a top woman, then you shouldn't be copying what every other woman does. And when you Israelite women are in the kingdom, you will hands down, no shadow of a doubt, be the most beautiful women on the earth all the time. There won't be no doubt about that in the kingdom. But as it stands right now, it's not that, man. It's not that. There's still obviously beautiful Israelite women, obviously, because it's the best nation on the earth, the Israelites are. But for on average, I would say that maybe not the case, man. That's maybe not the case, because they've been proud, and the scripture said, oh, let me go back to it again. The scripture said instead of beauty, that they'll be burning instead of beauty. Let me go to it. Because people can say the hair is symbolic and whatever they want to say, but we know that the Israelite woman struggles to grow hair, man. Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 24, and it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle a rent, and instead of well set hair boldness, and instead of a stomacher a girdle of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. So it's harder for the Israelite woman to be beautiful because she's under that curse because of her pride, right? And then they try and sometimes push the blame onto the men all the time, right? But they act, if we was to just forget the men as a nation for a second, forget the men as being part of the nation for a second, and look at just the female population of our nation, would we find that they're less sinners than the men? Or would we find the same thing that King Solomon found? That one among 1,000, he hasn't even found that are trying to do the right thing. But among a man, he has found, and let me go to that scripture. Because a lot of this world has done a big trick by blaming men all the time for everything, right? But then trying to make out as though women are guiltless. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 26. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleads God shall depart from her, but the sinner shall be taken with her. So if you find yourself always around wicked women, then that means that there's something within you that you need to change as a man. That's what the scriptures are saying. Forget me talking. Listen to what the scripture said. Verse 27. Behold, this I have found. Behold, this have I found, saith the preacher, which was King Solomon, counting one by one to find the account. So this is a social experiment that King Solomon did, right? Which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. So King Solomon was seeking to find a righteous woman, man, right? He was seeking to find it. One among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. So King Solomon was searching among men and searching among women to see, is there any righteousness around here, right? The way how he searched among the men for 1,000 would have been going through his kingdom, right? But the way how he searched for the women among 1,000 was he literally had 1,000 women, and let me show that, because he really wanted to see. He really took his life seriously and searched out this man to the point where we can read about it now today. 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, woman of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. So he was dabbling in all nations, man. Right? He was dabbling in all nations and still couldn't find it. Verse 2. Of all nations concerning which Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, you shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. Now some people say, see, you shouldn't be messing with them heathen women. Well, in the kingdom, we're going to be under the new covenant to where we can't be corrupted. Doesn't it say this ink, this corruptible, will become incorruptible? So in the kingdom, it ain't going to matter what woman we have in the kingdom, man. And a lot of Israelite women might get sour about this, right? And say, oh, but you're just saying that because you want to deal with Edomite women. Well, there's going to come a time where there's not going to be any Edomite women for a man to deal with. So what about that? There's going to come a time where there's not going to be any Edomite woman that Israelite man can deal with. So for that 1,000 years while they're there, who are you to try and tell your husband that he can't deal with them? Because in that 1,001st year, they're all going to be gone. Or every single one of them. So you can't try and tell him what he can do. You can't tell him that. But let me carry on in this. Verse 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. So he had 1,000 women, man. And he searched, he said his soul seeketh, but he find it not, man. And why would his soul have seeked that? Well, let me show. Proverbs chapter 31 and verse 10. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. So King Solomon wanted to know. He wanted to know this, man. And let me see what it says at the top of here. Yeah. Verse 10 again. Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies? So Solomon was searching for a woman that's price is far above rubies, man, but he didn't find it. He didn't find it, man. He searched, but it wasn't there. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 28, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One among 1,000 have I found. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. So he couldn't find a woman that was righteous, man, among 1,000 women, which he had 1,000 women. So he would have been able to intimately to be around them, man, and he was wise. So he would have been testing them on certain things. He might have told them certain judgments that he was going to perform and see what answers they gave. And they might have said, "Oh, you should let him go." You know, when he said that there's certain things, he should have said, "Oh, but he's all right though." He might have tested the waters to see, and he might have tested among men, and certain men might have said the same thing as what women said. But then he would have always found that one among 1,000 men that would have been like, "No, we have to stick to the laws. We have to stick to what the laws are saying." Because that's the way. That way we keep ourselves from the curse. But among the women, he would have been finding that they're always trying to find a grey area to deal with, which is what women love to do, man. They love to try and deal in a grey area so that they can try and not have to deal with a strict way of things taking place. Let me carry on up here. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 26. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Now, let me go back to this again, right? Because people again want to try and say, "Oh, nah, that's not true," right? But there's a whole documentary made by Chris Rock, right? That's literally about women's hair, and it shows all the whole process of what women go through to get hair. It shows a ritual that they perform in India where they tell the women that they're sacrificing their hair for their god or whatever, but then the next thing you know, that's on the back of a van somewhere being taken to Babylon the Great, which is America, and being sold to some Israelite women. And they're cutting little babies, 2 year olds' hairs off. They're cutting people's hair off. I'd say people should watch it, man. Watch this documentary, man, and you'll see that this definitely is a curse upon the Israelite women, man. Just like the scriptures say. So people can say that we're not the Israelites all they want to say, but we know that we are, man. Because our women don't have to cut off their hair to try and show that they're under the curse like how other people's women do. We just are naturally doing that. They just naturally can't do it, man. And then they'll think they've got long hair if their hair comes down to the shoulder, because the majority of women's hair is not. But among other nations' women, having your hair come down to your shoulders is not classed as long hair, man. Or if an Israelite woman has long hair that goes past her shoulders, that's rare. And then every other woman is trying to ask her for the secret milk and magnesia potion, whatever, to try and find out how to do it, man. They're trying to find, or they be trying to assume that the woman's mixed or some stuff, come with that mixed stuff, when there's no such thing as mixed according to the Bible, because you are who your father is. Whatever your father's nationality is, that's what your nationality is. So for all these people out there trying to make out as though we're racist and that we just hate people because of their skin color, they don't know what they're talking about. Because the Israelites always had people that was pale skinned, because there's such a laws among the Israelites on how to deal with leprosy, which is people that have pale skin, man, according to the scriptures in Leviticus, like the 13th chapter of Leviticus, and I believe it's in the 14th as well. But yeah, I'm gonna end the lesson there, man. Like, people trying to say that the hair is symbolic, but we can clearly see among our women that they don't have the hair. So that's a further proof that we're the Israelites, man. All praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Makal Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elected nation of Israel. Shalom.